right, welcome back to Talking Shop. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. We're back at it. We kicked Ernie back out, got Ben back. Nice to have you back with us, brother. We are looking at Luke chapter 2, verses 22 through 40. Perfect text coming on the heels of Christmas. We said early on, I think, Matt, you pointed out, you said, there's just is all this powerful, beautiful stuff at a Sunday, which is like one of the lower attended Sundays. Yeah. Same thing, it happens at Easter. The Sunday after Easter is a great text always. But it is awesome. A lot of good stuff here. We'll talk through some of these different themes, different ideas for sermons. There's a lot of sermons in this text for sure. So take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't done it yet. And let's get after it.
In every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
All right, Luke chapter 2, 22 through 40. So much to talk about. And when the time came for their purification according to the law of Moses, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. Right? So what is it they're doing? They're going to Jerusalem for what purpose?
They're being good Jews.
Yep.
That's what the practice was. And Jesus down the road says, hey, suffer to be so that all righteousness is fulfilled. So according to the law, he's fulfilling what he's supposed to be doing, or the family is.
Okay, so what happened in what is the point of the ritual? Why are they going? To offer, what is it, to...
you're looking not at the purification, but at the time of his presentation?
No, I'm just getting it. So, so he's presented at the temple. It's written in the law of the Lord, every male who first opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And so they make a sacrifice according to what is said, right? Mm-hmm. Why doing it? What's all going on here?
So in Exodus 13, God sets aside, he kills the firstborn of Egypt and saves the firstborn of Israel. And so therefore, once they come out of Israel, he says, okay, that means that all the firstborn of Israel now are holy to me. Yeah. Every single one of them. Because that it's kind of without saying it, it's kind of it's not the best way to say it, but that's the price of redemption, you might say, is now all firstborn are set aside to serve me, which is actually the way the priesthood was supposed to work up until the golden calf apostasy. Yeah. The firstborn were supposed to be the priests.
So this is, I think that's just a great point, because one of those things that I know for myself, like referencing this text or using it, like actually you forget about that. Like you think of it, not to pick on Mike here, but like they're just being good. They're doing because they are. Yeah. They're doing that. But that the history of this is like so much of their history tied to the Exodus, right? Tied to the deliverance, the action of God on their behalf. And so even here at the very beginning, you know, like this is tied to the coming of Christ and what he's here to do. I mean, I think that's an interesting piece, you know, that I usually don't think about. You just get, hey, this just gets them to the temple. Yeah, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah, right. So they go, and if you get into it, I'm pretty sure what they're offering. This is like your budget version, right? Because there's always the luxury item. Like if you have the money, you're supposed to offer this thing. If you don't, then you offer the
pigeons.
The pigeons, right?
Two pigeons, to be in fact.
Yeah. Now, so then we learn about a guy named Simeon. What do we know about good old Simeon?
We only know what the text tells us. He's old. He's got a connection to God in some way, and that he's been told that he's not going to die until he's seen the redemption of God. I think it is. Is that the
consolation
the
of
word
Israel?
that's used?
Israel,
The Lord's anointed. That's the one that
Okay, yeah, Christ.
he will not taste or he will not see death
Right,
until he sees the Lord's anointed.
Yeah, so it says he's waiting for the consolation of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been revealed to him by the Spirit that he would not see death, right?
Yeah.
Until the Christ, the anointed one.
Yeah, so in some ways, I mean, that would make Simeon excited because all of Israel has been waiting for the consolation of
Yeah.
Israel. In fact, I think it's 1 Peter where he says, you've seen what the prophets long to see.
Right.
And so he's excited because it's going to happen in his generation.
That's right.
Yeah.
He just doesn't realize it's going to happen way late in his generation.
Yeah, that's right.
And so he's appears to be advanced in years,
Yeah.
at least from what it says.
Yeah, and even, as we'll get in what he says, kind of anticipates that he's ready to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And but anyway, yeah. So he will not see death until he sees the anointed, the Lord's Christ. So then you get this weird phrase. I think is weird. And he came in the Spirit into the temple. Man, I think we always just take that like the Spirit led him, sort of like the Spirit.
Drove Jesus out. to the
Yeah,
wilderness.
it's like the Spirit's got a role to play. He's
Yeah.
doing these things.
Big in Luke, by the way, because he uses that several times in Acts.
Yeah.
Philip is led by the Spirit out
Yeah.
into the wilderness.
Maybe
Jesus
that's a
is
good
led by the
connection.
Spirit out into the
Yeah.
wilderness. So
It makes you imagine like the wind is blowing them in this direction or
Yeah,
something.
right,
Because
right.
like the Holy Spirit is like the wind, right? It blows in whatever direction it wants to go, and
Yeah.
it takes you
See,
wherever.
and I was going even worse than that, thinking like it is the thing of like Ezekiel in the Valley of Dry Bones, who's like caught up in the Spirit. It's like some vision quest thing. It's like it's not it. Like he actually goes to the temple,
Right.
and sees. So it's like this, What's happening? There's this like.
and if we were to see it, and maybe even in Simeon in that day, it would be like on a whim. I think I'll go to the temple today.
That's right. Yeah. So he goes to the temple, and lo and behold, there's a meeting going to take place here. So he gets there as the very moment that Mary and Joseph are bringing Jesus, right, to make this sacrifice.
And maybe this is the Spirit thing, because it doesn't say he knows.
Yes.
Doesn't say that he overhears what they're doing or who this is or anything. It just says they brought him up,
That's a great point.
immediately he takes him. And so maybe he's seen in his dreams, maybe he's seen a vision of that. And in that day, he's in the Spirit, he's looking around.
Boom.
Those two connections are made, and he's like, there it is.
There it is.
My thing is right here is like he took him in his arms. It's just like, oh look, hey, there's a couple
Here's
with
a
a
baby.
baby here. I'm just gonna grab that baby real quick, like.
Yeah.
But
Well, it must, in some of that, I mean, I think you infer like what Simeon's role was.
Yeah.
He's probably is this, or at least you can paint it that way pretty easy, this old kind of statesman in the temple sort of thing. Like this guy who has this responsibility or is there, and they're clearly okay with it.
It's the beginning of the end for the temple too. So there's some closure that's starting
That's
to
a
happen.
great picture too, yeah.
Because Jesus comes and now he's the temple.
Sure.
yeah,
There is a little bit of church tradition. Don't quote me on where it's at. You'll have to go find it. That I've heard anyway. That it's possible that Simeon is a priest, and that one of his roles is to do these dedications for the firstborn. And so it might be one of those things where every firstborn male that comes, he's like, "Is this the one?
Is that it?
Not yet. Is this the one? No, not yet."
But today, in the Spirit,
and so in
he
this
knows.
one now, he's like, "This is now the Christ. This is now the Lord's
Interesting.
anointed that's before us."
And it's like John too. I wouldn't know who it was if it weren't for what the one who sent me told me.
Yeah.
But the one you see the Spirit descend. So people are having these discernments, but they're Spirit-led discernments. Nobody can say Christ is Lord except by the Spirit.
Right.
I mean, if you want to look at a nice parable, it was like Samuel, right? When he goes and looks for David, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's a
all,
good parable.
all,
I like
all of
that.
his brothers, and then he like brings that one. Nope, not that one. No, not. Don't you have another
Are
one?
these all the boys? Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
So then he takes up this child in his arms. He blessed God, and his words here are famous.
Yeah.
I mean, these
Yeah.
are
Famous
what we
Nolte
know
minutes.
as if you're in a liturgical church tradition, you know these. The Nunc Dimittis is the Latin
Now
phrase.
dismissing, I think, right?
Yep.
Isn't that
Yeah.
what it?
And it is beautiful. I think for a lot of people, this is where you get caught up in your sermon here, kind of in this section. Although there's a lot of good stuff coming.
Exactly.
But Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace. And we talked about it a bit in the translation that it's the idea here seems to be like this sense of like, finally I can die,
Yeah.
right? And that sometimes hits us weird, but if you've been a pastor for any length of time, you got old folks in your, you know that.
Yeah.
You know that cry of people where they're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
What's going on? He's been waiting for this.
Yeah.
And now he's like, good, I'm good.
And I think it was you, Mike, who said he's seen a lot. He's seen tribulation. He's seen trouble. He's seen all of these things, and it's just like I'm done now. Now I'm finally seeing the end of all of that, and so now I can finally be at peace. Because you made the comment that in the translation, peace is the very last word in that sentence, which is different than the way it's normally translated in English.
Right.
Yeah.
That he's with all of the chaos that's been going on around him. Now he's at peace because he has witnessed the Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good. In accordance with his word, which the previous Sunday, if you did that text, we talked about this is what Mary says.
Yeah, let it
right?
be done to me according to your word.
Let it be done to me. Here again, you get the repeated notion. The word of God is being fulfilled. These things are happening. The next line is golden. My eyes have seen your salvation. So I'm looking at, holding in my arms salvation.
Yeah.
Which could be linked to Job. What is that? Job 18 or 19. Even though I die, yet in my flesh I will see God. So that he knows that even as he's dying, that this salvation that has been brought to him is going to continue on. So.
Yeah, that you prepared in the presence of all peoples.
That's a radical statement right there, coming up. 32, a light for revelation to the Gentiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for glory to your people Israel. So, not too many would be so quick to recite that.
Yeah, but really harkening back to the Old Testament, I mean, this
Certainly.
the
Abrahamic
fulfillment of
covenant.
what they were supposed to always be.
Yep.
Right. A light to
Exactly.
the nations.
A light to the nations that this gift goes out.
Yeah, what is that? Is that 49, the third servant song? It is too light a thing
Yes.
that you should
Very good.
redeem my people.
Yeah. All right. So mom and dad are like, whoa. that was a bit much. Right? They're shocked. The words of Simeon here, now, to be honest, I think this is where I might focus. So I think these are things the other ones we kind of know a lot of. There's a lot of weighty, kind of foreboding words here by Simeon.
Very ominous.
So he says to Mary, what does he say about the child? So he's taken up the child, bless the child, bless God, right? And then he says to her,
behold, this one is destined or appointed or established, whatever you want to do that as, for the fall and the rise of many in Israel. And a sign opposed, or a sign that will be spoken against, I think, is another way that you can phrase that one.
Yeah.
So if you thought all of that was a revelation, all those things of Simeon doing that and saying that, no, it's not going to exactly go as maybe you might anticipate.
Right. This is the language of the stumbling block, right? You will either fall over it or it will crush you. There's no getting around it. Right? It is the thing.
Yeah, I think the way that I was just looking back at the lexicon, and there was a contradicted a sign contradicted, and I think that's you'll see that in the rest of Jesus' ministry. So this is a good way, even as we're ending Christmas now, to work into Epiphany, that God is going to reveal His salvation, and everybody's going to go, that ain't right.
Yeah.
That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That Christ is going to come in and He's going to kind of overthrow all of those preconceived notions or all of those misgivings.
The best example, right, is Peter, right? With the get behind me, Lord. He's like, he just confessed Him to be the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then he's like, so this is what that means.
Yeah.
I go and I die. And Peter's like,
far be it from you, Lord.
Right? That's not what I envision. That's not how I see it.
But I think this is so beautiful and poetic just because Simeon knows, from what the Spirit is leading him, is telling him. And he's like, this for us, even today, it's like, hey, this is like the prophecy, the foreboding, the prelude to everything that's going to happen. And like this guy clearly states, it's not going to happen the way you guys want it to.
And that's something interesting where it sets Simeon apart from everybody else. So we were talking about John the Baptist sitting in prison, right? Lord, are you the one? Why am I still in prison if you're the one? And his parents are hearing all of this, and they're going to be like, and wait, you're Jesus, you should come home with us. You've been out in the sun a little too long.
Beside himself.
And Peter, no, that's not the way the Christ. But Simeon has seen all of these things. And it's like, this is going to be different than what you're anticipating.
And the fact that we're saying, he's finally allowed to die. And I think, like we were mentioning, he's been a watcher this whole entire time. He's seen how Israel has fallen and rose and fall, their mistakes and everything like that. And thinking about the 40 years in the wilderness, how many times, and we're going back to 22 when we think about all these traditions come from the Exodus and after, right? And so now you're just going, he's like saying, no, I've seen our mistakes. I've seen what we've done. I've seen what we thought God should be doing for us. But here is what He has done for us.
This one's
and
different.
Many are going to stumble because they just still don't want to get it.
35 is a tough one also, following that. And a sword, I looked it up, it's a large, broad, double-edged
sword.
Is the word there. Well, so it's not like a little, it's a big sword. Will pierce through your own soul also. That's what he says to his mom. So that thoughts from many hearts may be revealed. Again, this is highlighting the cross. This is going to tear her apart. Obviously, and its purpose is greater than just like the salvation of Mary, say, or something like that. Like it pours out so to many hearts will be and thoughts will be revealed.
And that dialogismoi we were talking about is almost a conniving or a scheming. So it has an insidious purpose to it, almost, that it's going to be, so that the hearts, the true nature of man and their fallenness is going to be
and you think of
unfurled.
Jesus in the house, and He knew their thoughts. And He doesn't give Himself over to man because He knows.
Knowing that they were trying to trap Him, or all of those kinds of things.
We mentioned when we were working on it, like it becomes then. The cross becomes that line drawn in the sand, sort of like, again, that's the stumbling block image. Like, whatever you thought the Messiah was going to be, this is what He is. He's dying for you. Will rise for you. And there's no other way. Right. And this is going to expose everything.
And the piercing of the soul comes, maybe you could work on this if you're going to go with Mary and that theme of the Annunciation. The piercing for Mary happens at the cross when she's watching her son, the Messiah, die. And knowing it's still the salvation. So as she's losing her son, God is still bringing about salvation to the world through Him.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, a sword will pierce through your soul too. She's there when the sword pierces her son's side as well. So you too. So there's a little prophetic statement in that with the word too.
And also, if you think about what we're saying, as you mentioned earlier, Paul, when Simeon says, according to your word, and then if last week's sermon, it says, if this be your word, God, then I'll follow. And so for Mary, and for us too, if you think about it, when we follow God's word, we're going to get pierced. We're going to suffer. It's not going to be an easy walk to be a Christian, just like Mary, who's the mother of Christ. It's a walk that she chose to follow because she chose to follow according to God's word. And today we don't choose, but we're called to follow God's word. And it's not an easy walk. It's gonna be a tough one. And I think that's another reversal of understanding, another stumbling block for most Christians.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving through it because you think it's over. It's still not over.
Take a breath.
So we get the prophetess Anna, kind of a strange character, shows up, advanced in years, having lived with her husband 7 years from when she was a virgin, and then a widow until she was 84.
And there's too many details there that are given that you should be able to trace that Old Testament wise and all that. Probably not sermon fodder, but just know that that's there, and we don't have time to go into it.
Yeah,
but it's
she's old.
yeah. She's old, and she's been serving at the temple for a long time.
She's been a widow for a long time.
Yeah.
God bless our widows.
Yeah, and she did not depart from the temple, it says, but worship with fasting and prayer night and day. This is her, where she is rooted, right? And then you get this strange, at that very hour, I know we had some struggles, it was like, before, or I can't remember.
Standing in that hour, I think it was.
So this is the moment in which Simeon has made his proclamation. She is there as another kind of faithful witness in the temple.
It's kind of a flash mob. It's a small flash mob,
very
but
small,
it's kind of a flash mob.
In the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses, and let every word be established.
Yeah, I think that's a good way you could do it, for sure. Like another witness to this, as this child is there, makes his first appearance in his own temple.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's kind of cool.
Yep.
So she gives thanks to God and does what? She speaks of him, right?
And speaks concerning him to all who were waiting or who were
Expecting this word.
Expecting, I think, receiving was another way to do it. The redemption of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting frame too, especially in light of what Israel or Jerusalem experiences that very same century.
And it's also interesting that it's Jerusalem. It's not Israel, as you have there. It's the city that God has put his name on. And so there's almost this cleansing that's going to happen of the city of God, or that has to happen in order to... Because there were a lot at that time, if you read your history, who, the temple was corrupt, the leadership in Jerusalem was corrupt, and they're like, something's got to give here. And so they're longing for that Messiah. They're longing for God to break in.
We have an explicit New Jerusalem coming. That's in the book of Revelation. So it's kind of like a sword's going to pierce Jerusalem as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All right. And a little traveling music at the end. We find out, after doing everything according to the law, they go home.
To Galilee. In the town of Nazareth.
Yep. So they go back to Nazareth, which is where they're from.
You can fit in the flight to Egypt on your own. Where that fits.
And the child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom. My favorite guy was born.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
which I think is connected to Solomon, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
Who would be the son of David.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some connection in that wording that's used.
Okay.
He found favor too for what he asked as king.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I do like the fact that it tells us that he grew strong, because he had to endure a lot for us. And like you think about like all that happens right before the cross. Like, who could actually bear that? Who could actually take that on?
Right.
Yeah. Well, the image that you used of the altarpiece where
Yeah.
the cross is bowed under the
Yeah,
weight
yeah,
of what
yeah.
he's bearing. That's
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Powerful.
All right. Well, that's a lot. But I think as we finished working on it, Ben said, "So which sermon are you going to preach?" Because there's a lot, and that's the beauty is you don't have to preach the whole thing, right? You got this powerful text, you got the whole context, but within that context, there's a lot of sermons.
Yes.
So when you take a moment to kind of think it through, what are you going to focus on? There's a lot of options to do it. It's a good one to kind of pick something and say, hey, we're gonna let's hone in on this and mine it for kind of what it's worth and the proclamation that it gives. So take a moment to like and subscribe, and as always, share your thoughts on what you're gonna do with this text if you're using it. Check out craftofpreaching.com, and God bless your preaching.